So today we're jumping into a moment in the book of Exodus where a bold plan for freedom goes catastrophically, horribly wrong. It's a story that sparks a huge crisis of faith and pushes an entire nation and its leader right to the breaking point.
And it all starts right here, with this single, defiant question from the most powerful man in the world. Who is the Lord that I should obey him? I mean, this isn't just a no. It's a flat-out rejection of any power but his own, and it's the trigger for a really dramatic and cruel escalation of events.
So, how does this all kick off? Well, it starts with a really bold first move. Two leaders, Moses and Aaron, walk directly into the court of the king of Egypt to make an appeal for their enslaved people.
Now, on the surface, their request sounds almost reasonable, right? They don't demand total freedom, at least not yet. They just ask for a temporary, 3-day leave to hold a religious festival. They frame it as a divine obligation, something they absolutely have to do for their God.
But, Pharaoh doesn't hear a religious plea at all. What he hears is an attack on his workforce and a direct challenge to his authority. He sees Moses and Aaron not as prophets, but as troublemakers trying to mess with his economy. And his response is immediate and blunt. Get back to work.
Okay, so Pharaoh's response? It isn't just a simple no, not even close. He decides he's going to teach them a lesson. And what comes next is a strategic punishment, a total masterclass in cruelty, designed to crush the very idea of freedom before it can even get started.
So instead of even thinking about negotiating, Pharaoh just escalates. Big time. He issues a new decree, and it's not a counteroffer, it's a weapon. This order is going to fundamentally and very painfully change the entire nature of their forced labor. So let's break down the logistical cruelty of his plan, okay? Before this, straw, which is a critical binding agent for mud bricks, was provided for them. Now, the people have to go out and find it themselves, which is a hugely time-consuming task. But here's the catch. Their daily brick quota stays exactly the same. I mean, think about that. Their workload literally doubles, just like that.
And how many concessions did they get? You're looking at it? 0. A big fat 0. The quota was not reduced, not by a single brick. This wasn't just about making their work harder, it was about making it impossible. The whole system was now designed for them to fail.
And here's the thing, this wasn't just random cruelty. No, this was a cold, calculated political move. Pharaoh's goal, in his own words, was to make them so exhausted that they'd have no energy left to listen to the so-called lies of these new leaders. It was a strategy designed to break their spirit and to completely discredit Moses.
So, what does this actually mean for the people on the ground? What does this kind of tyranny actually look like? Well, it looks like absolute chaos and suffering. You can see how this cruelty just cascades right down the chain of command. Pharaoh gives the order. The people have to scatter all over Egypt just looking for stubble. The Egyptian slave drivers crank up the pressure to meet the quota. And when it inevitably isn't met, who pays the price? It's the Israelite overseers, their own foremen who are beaten for the failure.
So, in this totally desperate move, the beaten overseers decide to go straight to the top. They appealed directly to Pharaoh, probably thinking, there must be a mistake here. They try to argue that the fault is with the Egyptian slave drivers, just hoping for a tiny moment of royal justice.
But any hope they had just gets obliterated. Pharaoh doesn't just dismiss their plea, he insults them, calls them lazy, and then doubles down on his impossible command. This is that moment, the one where they realize there's just no reasoning with this kind of power. The door has been slammed shut, locked, and bolted.
So, with the appeal to the king completely failing, where does all that despair and anger go? Well, it turns on a new target, the very men who started this whole mess.
And when they finally find Moses and Aaron, they just let them have it. The accusation is just devastating. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. In their minds, the man who was sent to free them has instead armed their enemy.
I mean, just look at the fallout here. It's a complete disaster. Every single part of the plan is backfired. The attempt to get a little bit of freedom has led to crushing oppression. All that hope has curdled into bitter resentment. And Moses? He's now totally alone, rejected by the very people he was sent to save.
And that's when the blame game comes full circle. Moses, totally crushed by Pharaoh and now rejected by his own people, finally turns to his God with the question at the heart of this whole crisis. Why did you send me here only to make things worse? You haven't rescued anyone at all.
And that really is the core dilemma here, isn't it? The first big move for freedom was a catastrophic failure. It made the oppressors stronger, it broke the spirit of the people, and it shattered the leaders' confidence. So it leaves us with this huge question. When your first attempt at liberation makes everything so much worse, what do you do next?